The air in the opulent chamber hung thick with a stifling silence, broken only by the frantic thudding of Prince Khafre's heart against his ribs. Moonlight, pale and suspicious, filtered through the papyrus reeds lining the windows, casting long, grotesque shadows that danced like skeletal fingers across the faces of the assembled nobles. Khafre's voice, usually a smooth baritone, hitched as he continued the tale. He spoke of Ubaina, the esteemed high priest, a man once revered for his piety, now a cautionary whisper on the lips of every palace servant. Doubt, a serpent cold and venomous, had coiled itself around Ubaina's heart. Whispers, carried on the backs of envious servants, slithered into his ears, painting a picture of his wife Nefertari, the very embodiment of Hathor's beauty, consumed by a secret yearning. One night, as oppressive as a desert tomb, suspicion gnawed at Ubaina like a starved jackal. He crept through the moonlit palace gardens, his breath ragged gasps against the hushed whispers of the night wind. There, bathed in the traitorous glow of the moon, he saw her Nefertari, her flawless features contorted in an agony of ecstasy, entangled in the arms of a commoner, a gardener with eyes the color of sun-baked clay. A tide of fury, hot and suffocating, surged through Ubaina. But vengeance, he knew, craved a mask, a cunning disguise. In the dead of night, he delved into the forbidden depths of his private chambers, his fingers trembling as he traced the arcane symbols etched onto a tattered grimoire. By the pale light of a single flickering oil lamp, he meticulously crafted a figurine of a crocodile, each scale imbued with a malevolent magic that pulsed with a sickly green luminescence. As the first rays of dawn bled across the eastern horizon, casting long, skeletal fingers across the sand, Ubaina chanted an incantation in a language older than time itself. His voice, a guttural growl that sent shivers skittering down the spine of the lone steward who had witnessed the ritual, scraped against the cool morning air. The day stretched on, each tick of the sundial a cruel reminder of the festering secret. The steward, eyes wide with a dread that mirrored Ubaina's own, watched as the unsuspecting lover met Nefertari in their usual clandestine rendezvous spot. With a flick of his wrist, Ubaina sent the figurine sailing through the air. It landed with a soft plop in the palace reflecting pool, and a ripple of disquiet spread outwards. Then, a transformation. The water churned, frothing and boiling, as the figurine swelled and contorted. In its place rose a monstrous crocodile, its scales shimmering an unnatural green, its eyes burning embers in the morning sun. The hapless lover, caught unawares, let out a shriek that curdled the blood. The creature lunged, its fetid breath washing over him as it dragged him, thrashing and screaming, into the emerald depths. A gasp, sharp and ragged, tore through the tense silence of the court. The nobles exchanged horrified glances, their faces etched with a mixture of morbid fascination and revulsion. Even the moon, as if recoiling from the scene it had witnessed, seemed to shrink back, its luminescence dimming in the face of such barbaric cruelty. 7 days crawled by, each one an eternity for Ubaina. Guilt, a relentless vulture, gnawed at his insides. Yet, the fear of public humiliation, of being exposed as a fraud who dabbled in forbidden arts, held him captive. Then fate, like a capricious desert wind, shifted. King Nebka himself, a man whose presence commanded respect and obedience, arrived for a royal visit. Ubaina, his voice hoarse and his face a mask of forced composure, approached the pool and commanded the creature to rise. The water churned once more, and the monstrous crocodile emerged, the lover clinging precariously to its back, miraculously alive. A collective sigh of relief escaped the assembled nobles, but Nebka, a shrewd king with eyes that missed nothing, remained silent. His gaze, sharp as a desert hawk's, pinned Ubaina to the spot. The silence stretched, a suffocating weight that threatened to extinguish the flickering torches. Then a flicker of amusement, cruel and unsettling, crossed the king's features. A clever ploy, Ubaina, he rumbled, his voice deep and gravelly like stones grinding together. Though perhaps a tad excessive, a sliver of hope, fragile as a desert flower, bloomed in Ubaina's chest. But Nebka was not done. Justice, however, he continued, his voice hardening like sun-baked clay, demands a price. He pointed a gnarled finger at the monstrous crocodile, its fetid breath clouding the air. The creature shall be the arbiter of your fate, Eubaina. Retrieve your lover. Eubaina's heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drum solo against the chilling silence. His hand, slick with sweat, twitched as he approached the beast. Its emerald eyes, devoid of any warmth, seemed to pierce his very soul, dissecting his every thought, every hidden fear. He reached out a trembling hand, the distance between him and the crocodile an eternity. Suddenly, the air crackled with an unseen energy. The fetid breath of the creature washed over him, smelling of stagnant water and decay. A low growl rumbled from its throat, vibrating the very floor beneath Eubaina's feet. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to retreat, but the cold, calculating gaze of the king held him frozen. Just as Eubaina's fingers brushed the rough hide of the creature, a transformation began. The monstrous crocodile shrunk, its scales losing their unnatural glow. Relief flooded Eubaina, so intense it almost made him dizzy. But the euphoria was short-lived. With a final, agonizing twitch, the wax figurine, back to its original size, lunged at Eubaina's hand. Its jaws, once imposing on the massive crocodile, now seemed all the more terrifying in their miniature ferocity. They snapped shut with a sickening crack, tearing into Eubaina's flesh and bone. A scream, raw and primal, erupted from Eubaina's throat, echoing through the cavernous chamber. Blood, crimson against the pale moonlight, gushed from the mangled hand, staining the pristine white floor. The court erupted in chaos. Nobles shrieked and scrambled back, their faces contorted in a grotesque mix of horror and morbid fascination. The king, however, remained an island of stillness amidst the storm. A cruel smile played on his lips as he watched Eubaina clutch his hand, the scream dying into a choked whimper. "It seems," Nebka declared, his voice dripping with icy amusement, "the crocodile has chosen its next victim." Suddenly the steward, the lone witness to Eubaina's forbidden ritual, stepped forward, his face pale and drawn. He had seen the raw, unbridled power unleashed by the wax figurine, and now, with a surge of desperate courage, he spoke. "Your Majesty," he shrieked, his voice raw with terror. "This magic is forbidden. It is a power that consumes the innocent." His words, a spark of defiance in the face of the king's cruel amusement, hung heavy in the air. Then, darkness. A guttural roar, the thrashing of water, and a deafening silence descended upon the chamber. The torches, for reasons unknown, had been extinguished, plunging the court into an inky blackness. Panic seized the nobles. Cries for help and curses rose in the darkness, a chorus of fear echoing through the vast chamber. When light finally sputtered back to life, a scene of unimaginable horror unfolded. The wax crocodile, now grotesque and life-sized, lay sprawled at the base of the dais, its jaws clamped around the steward's lifeless body. His once fearful eyes stared vacantly at the ceiling, reflecting a ghastly tableau. Eubaina, his face a canvas of shock and dawning horror, stared at the scene before him. The hand he cradled bled profusely, a constant reminder of the creature's bite. King Nebka, his earlier amusement replaced by a cold fury, turned towards Eubaina. "Your magic has brought chaos and death." Eubaina, he boomed, his voice a thunderclap shattering the stunned silence. "And for that, there can be no forgiveness." With a wave of his hand, he condemned Eubaina to a fate worse than death exile in the harsh desert beyond the Nile's reach, a land where the sun scorched mercilessly and the sands whispered promises of a slow, agonizing demise. As for Nefertari, her punishment was swift and brutal. Shrouded in a black veil, she was led out into the courtyard at dawn. A pyre, fueled by whispers of her transgression, crackled with anticipation. The scent of burning flesh filled the air, a grim reminder of the consequences of forbidden love and unchecked magic. The smoke rose high into the pre-dawn sky, a dark plume against the pale light, carrying with it a chilling message, a whisper of the cruelty of a king and the devastating price of a jealous heart.